Interesting. Evening, DC. Let me just going to log out and then log back in. Is that one? No. That one. Let me just make sure that's okay. Who we've got? Evening, Leeds. Hi, Adrian. Evening, Chalky Weight. Patricia Angeles. Evening, all. The Saints, #1. Oh, do. DC. Evening, Adrian. Kevin Iverson. Evening. And Alison Wright. Lovely to see you there, Alison. Hi, everyone. Oh, so warm. Emma Jones. Hello, Emma. Paul Flint. Evening, Paul. Phil Sumner. Evening, Adrian. You legend of the airways. Yeah, smooth talk. And Divil, Phil. Tina Silver. Hiya. Makes a change from Songs of Praise. I can sing them for you, Tina. Hayden 2012. Evening, all. Diana Brooks. Oi, oi, Adrian. Oi, oi, Diane. Vivian Kenyon. Hello, Adrian. Looking forward to this. To AD Blackmore. AD, good to see you. Hi, Adrian. I can hear that Queen song Scandal. Oh, clever. Very clever, AD. Terry Wookfit. Evening, Mr. Allen. Evening, Terry. Kevin Rowlands. Surely not thee, Kevin. Hello, Adrian. Evening, you're wrongin' from the Jacobite. Evening, Jacobite. Pound Shop Tracy. You can run, Mr. Allen, but you can't hide. Thank you very much. And Paul James and Mr. John Up. Paul James, good evening, you wrongin'. Mr. John Up. Hello, Adrian. Good to see you back as a married man, no less. Oh, hang on a second. Normally, Emma L., when I came back for the first live, she said, oh, yeah, where's your wedding ring? Better put it on, because somebody will go, here, where's your wedding ring, Adrian? Are you divorced already? No. Leeds wanted to say, Adrian, can I just say before you start, I really like Russell Brand. I always have. I don't think he's done anything illegal. He's had a lot of women, we know that, but I hope he's innocent. Well, we will talk about this because let's allow everyone to get their feet under the table, and because I think there's going to be polar opposites tonight, sadly. So Leeds, we will do that tonight. We're going to cover a lot of ground tonight. Terry Wookford, let's have no Dexy's comments about poor Eileen being traumatised. What a great song, though. I think it's Russell's favourite. Come on, Eileen. Mike C, evening you, Adrian. Just excuse me while I towel me bum crack dry. It's a warm one tonight. Where are you, Mike? It's a little more temperate today. God, blimey, it was warm yesterday. CM Training, Russell Brand. Well, I strongly believe in innocent until proven guilty. I'm not a fan of his, but no one deserves to be falsely accused either. Well, the reason why I waited, I was going to do a video straight after the dispatches last night, but I was so tired, and in a way I'm thankful, simply because I think this needs to be looked at with a balanced sense of view. I think it needs to be mature. I think the conversation needs to be adult. And I watched Dispatches last night. I made some notes. And I've sort of looked at it today through fresh eyes. I've done some research. We'll give you, I don't know whether you know the detail of Russell Brand's career, but I'm going to give you some of that. And we're going to walk through it. I've got lots of your comments, which I'll use as per usual in the last 10, 15 minutes or so of the live. And, oh, Hayden, where did you see that? Hayden 2012 says, already media saying the channels protected him. Shades of Philip Schofield. Leeds, in response to Paul, says, one of your lives said 53 years ago. What was that, Paul? I'm an old boy. I'm a bit harder thinking. So, thank you, Scotty. So if you can sort of elucidate and give me... Gareth Rose, you've got a new follower now on your YouTube. Gareth, is that you? Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that. Well, CM Training says, is he the one who took out the injunction? Well, we can't talk about that because that's still in place. No, we can't talk about that. I can't even dance around that. If there's a super injunction in place, can't be talked about under any circumstances. The press, if they wish to be sued, might be able to. So if there is any NDAs or injunctions, those people that it applies to won't be able to talk about it. But I have got lots of notes, and I've got lots of questions that easily trip off the tongue. Chris Mundy, I was hoping we could talk about Mongolian art, but now we have to talk about Russell Brand. I'd rather talk about Peruvian art. You try some of the street hawkers. I mean, I can't remember who it was. They said that they were, it's in the comments that I'm going to read out later. They said they were in Peru last year. So they Peru's really impoverished. I mean, you've got, on the one hand, you've got the military, and you've got the higher ups, the political classes who are very wealthy, and then you've got the tuk-tuk drivers who are impoverished. I mean, how the heck they put meals on their tables, I'll never know. But just a couple of more minutes or so, and then we'll dive straight in. Oh, yeah. Tell you, good point. In response to the question, does he have an injunction? Terry says the injunction isn't his. The press wouldn't accuse RB of anything if he had an injunction out on any of these allegations. So they must be fresh. Have I missed anything? Says Toxicology. Not got long, sadly. Going to have to watch this one back later. Just watch it later, Toxicology. It's always good to know that you're around. Andrew, why didn't Operation U-Tree investigate Brand then? Good question, Andrew. U-Tree wasn't it an investigation into Savile's activities at the BBC? Which one was it? I think U-Tree might have just been into investigations into just general nefariousness. Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty. Paul Allen, Adrian, do you realise you would triple your audience if you ditched your... Paul, it's the love of my life. I can't... Look, I firmly believe you can't choose your football team. You can't. It's where you're from. So I was born, I can, even in my head now, I can see the floodlights at Roker Park from where I was first born. A place called Rothsay Street, which is not there anymore, near Newcastle Road, Baths in Sunderland. I will say, the first couple of matches this season, I thought, oh, do I need to jump off a tall building? I thought it was going to be just a really bad season. And the last couple of results was like, oi, what's going on here? So it might be all right. Forgive me. I didn't choose the team. That's where I was born, and it's just a mug. Mind you, I might bring some new ones out. Pound Shop Tracy, also Max Clifford Entertainer, Rolf Harrison, DJ, Dave Lee Travis were also named. Was U-Tree not Cliff as well? Don't be taking me down that route. No, don't. In fact, yes, I can tell you. I can tell you this story. I can. Because my peepers saw it. And I was invited to Cliff Richard's launch party for one of his albums in the early 90s. So, this is before we start the live. So, I'm invited to this sound party. And it's this warehouse, and it's decked out in linen, beautiful white linen, and all kinds of bits and pieces. I mean, it was a proper party for all pink roses in the house. Pink roses, I'll come to you in a second. So I'm at this party, and it's free drink, and it's free food, and it's free everything. Just kind of meandering around, and I'm with the record company rep, who I knew very well. I've known for years. And then the announcement was made, Cliff Richard's coming in the building. So I kind of stood up on a gantry, and I'm watching everything go on below me. And this was in London, of course. And Cliff Richard walks in with a bloke beside him. And I said to the guy from EMI Records, "Who's that?" I said, "That's his partner." "What do you mean?" I said, "It's his partner." And that is as much as I'm going to tell you. But that's enough for you. So, live number 26. There is more to that story, obviously, and I'm not going to go anywhere near it for very obvious reasons. So, live number 26. Don't forget the Battenberg. Next live is Wednesday 20, where are we? Yeah, 20th, this coming Wednesday, 8 o'clock, 20th of September. As I said on the last live, we're going to try and get into the rhythm of every Sunday and Wednesday. The lives may become more frequent. I am looking at, we have a date for a phone-in. We have to technically make sure that it's feasible. So we've created a date, me and the team have created a date, and there's going to be phone-ins. The only thing that I ask you is phone-ins are not phone-ins without callers. So, Capan, you can say that, but I can't possibly comment. I've just told you the truth. It's up to you to do your research. In fact, have I still got that guy from EMI Records' telephone number? I actually went out to John. I don't know whether you can remember this artist, John Cicada. It must have been EMI Records, and they flew us and a couple of others out to John Cicada's house in Miami to do an interview with him at his home. I mean, his home was fabulous. John Cicada put food and everything on. I mean, he had his own gym in his house, had his own beach. So we went into Miami. There was, I think, probably 6 or 7 of us. And we went there literally to do a 10-minute interview with John Cicada. They took us to MTV Miami. The Estefans were there, Gloria and Emilio. There was other big names, telly names, recording artist names. So EMI were very good. Very good. I've even stood on the Beatles veranda, where they look down, was at the Blue Album. I've stood there because everybody that goes to EMI Records in what square? I don't think they're there anymore. I think it's it was yesterday. DC Adrian, is the Convicted Stalkers anniversary due for 1 year in the Slammer? Yesterday, 16th of September. Well, I didn't particularly want to mention him. I want to talk about Russell Brand, and I'll get to it in a second. So I've stood there where the Beatles stood and had their photograph taken, touched the banister and everything. Manchester Square, thank you. Manchester Square. So when you're working in radio, I was head of music at Rock FM in Preston at the time. They just invite you down to do interviews with their artists, play the interview out, play some of the tunes. It's just promotion, and the record company look after you. Right, let's get stuck into this because I don't want to waste too much time. We've got lots of people waiting. Toxicology. It's the fact Cliff won't say what he is when it's so obvious. That's the biggest red flag about him. Why treat everyone like idiots? I know, it's like Belfield. I said to you, I thought he was neither Arthur nor Martha. And it wasn't until the court case that it came out. So, next live, this coming Wednesday, 8 o'clock. As I say, phone in. We're on the case with that. It might be a few weeks, but we're on the case. We have a start-ish date. And Q4, traditionally, is always a good time in radio. Hopefully on YouTube, because the nights are drawing in, the weather's inclement, people are going to be watching more YouTube. But phone-ins always need callers. And I'm going to upload a video tomorrow of a row with a guy called Roger Augustus. He's legendary in radio parts. I'm going to upload a video tomorrow that it's me and him having a bit of a joust, shall we say. So then you get, and there's some phrases in there. This is 20 years ago. This is 2001. So that's 20 years at least before, Dougie, the convicted stalker, started doing anything on YouTube. And bizarrely, he uses the same language as me. And I remember all of the stuff that I got when I started doing this channel and saying, oh, there's this and that, the scum-sucking pond life, and namby-pamby pinko liberals and mogadons and loads of other stuff. It's in this call. So you can see I was doing it 20 years while he was still peeing tatty water. Adrian, do you think that this Russell Brand scandal is the establishment's way of shutting him up and doing things and hope we don't notice? It is a very valid point you make, GB. Let's get into it and let's just work through it so that you get everything that you need to observe what's going on. Do I believe he's being set up? No, I think he's being naive. Because remember, his channel was True's News back in the day, a long time ago, and then he disappeared. He just disappeared. True's News, doing exactly the same thing, and that was shut down. So I don't know whether he shut it down or the establishment shut it down or something was going on. So if it was other people, powerful people that normally just operate in the shadows, he should have known better. So just to give you the heads up, it's less than 100 days to Christmas. More radio archive going up tomorrow, as well as social commentary. I'm going to try and be a lot more regular and consistent for you as we go into Q4. I just want to pass a comment about that donkey, Harry Maguire, donkey. I know a 5-year-old can play better defence than him, donkey. An own goal for England. Look, mate, just put yourself out of your misery. Take a driving job at Tesco's. I would. But then again, you got the money. Or was it that assault that happened abroad that's kind of mangled your head? Either way, he's not doing well for either Manchester United or England. Donkey. And his mum's had to come out and protect him. His mum. Leave my boy alone. It's only football. Well, I've got a story that I'm going to bring this week about Harry Maguire and it's only football. If you can't take it, don't give it, Harry. Just retire, man. 80 million they paid for him? At least Dick Turpin wore a mask. Lead says, I remember his radio show, brilliant, with Matt, Noel Gallagher, Mr. G, Nick the Vicar's son, and Trevor Locke. Yeah. So keep the comments coming. Let's get into this. I wanted to talk about the Libyan flood. I might do near the end. And also, I understand Mohammed Al-Fayed passed away while I was on honeymoon. So I'm going to do a video of Mo the Fayed because I worked for his organisation, the Fired organisation, as part of the management team at Liberty 963, or what did it become? Can't remember. It was a female-only radio station in London called Viva. It's known as Vulva in my house, and I'm in the middle of recording a video with some stories that might make your hair curl. But I'm going to tell you all about my time within the Fired organisation. We'll leave the Diana video until I can get time to do it justice. So dispatches last night. I mean, it's less than 24 hours since, and look at how the whole story, the whole Russell Brand story's blown up. I believe he's done the right thing. He's issued a video, and then apart from going and doing a gig last night, which I understand from observers that he was distracted, he was working from notes, he wasn't his usual ebullient self, his usual wordy self, but he did the gig all the same, sold out, brilliant. But I want to ask you, have you watched it? I don't want you on here commenting. Yeah, I noticed no one's jumping on the racist bandwagon with Maguire. Interesting, Terry, interesting. I watched it, and I've said before in these lives, in my younger years, in my teen years, I actually dragged a guy off a woman that was being raped in Sunderland, in a place called Southwick, in a bush shelter. So there's not much that, I've been witness to some awful things, which will, A, stay with me, and B, I'm not going to repeat on here, because that's not the right thing to do. But last night I found it particularly distressing, simply because they didn't mess about last night. They went straight in. They opened up with Russell Brand doing some gags. And then they went straight in and said a victim contacted the agent, which in the video that I recorded a little earlier, they went to his publishing agent, literary agent. Now, this investigation, if you want to use that, has been going on for at least a year. Stand by, caller. I just need to do something because what did I forget to do? I forgot to print off my notes. So we'll get to that in a second. So it's been going on for more than a year. There was at least 5 women. 4 wanted to remain anonymous, and 1 didn't. So 3 victims, at least 3 victims. And the victims were, one was a rape, one was, they said a sexual assault, but from how they were describing it, I think it's possibly attempt rape. But the rape happened in LA, in his home in LA. And the attempt rape or sexual assault, I think, also happened in America. So we're getting on pretty dicey ground simply because they're not part of British jurisdiction. And I know the Met have said today that anyone that believes someone has acted inappropriately towards them in a place of work, then they should contact them. The thing is, the way the police work, only the police force within their jurisdiction will do the investigating. So if something's happened around the country in various, I'm not suggesting it has, but I'm just using this as an example. There's various theatres of various places, a bit like Savile. The police force from that area would have to investigate. So it might have to be a coordinated effort. I'm going to ask you a question to sort of get us going with this. Russell Brand, is this, in your view, an abuse of power? Because his fame worked in his favour, and self-admittedly, he said, this old fame malarkey got him bedded quite a few times, if we can put it that way. Is this an abuse of power, or at best inappropriate behaviour at work? Because it appears from testimony on dispatches last night that it was happening in his dressing room at work. He was trying to get other people to get numbers or contacts for audience members. That's what they were alleging in dispatches last night. And I remember reading the report into Stuart Hall and Jimmy Savile, and that's how they operated within the TV studios. Savile would have, kids go back as young as 8-year-old to his dressing room, and Savile raped an 8-year-old on BBC property, and that was never prosecuted. So this seems to be, and if you look at Philip Schofield, young runner, he gets him a job. All of a sudden, he's a runner on This Morning, and some people thought that he was Philip Schofield's private runner in his dressing room with him. Let me have a look at the last. Alison Wright has said, he's not been found guilty though, so who can say without trial? That is correct, Alison. That is very correct. Amelia Grassi said, this is my view so far. It's a massive fit-up, especially after seeing the bots against him last night on Insta. Interesting. Wiggy Videos says, if they have his DNA, he could be screwed. Now, that's interesting. Sean, it's hibiscus tea. So that string is an hibiscus tea bag. I can't really show you, it'll go everywhere. But that was funny. That was funny. So back to Savile. And the way these perverts operated was they were taking advantage of people while they were in the dressing room. It appears that has been alleged within the Dispatches programme last night. Is this an abuse of power? Is it at best inappropriate behaviour at work? And yet, still, no one has been prosecuted for Epstein's Island or pimping kids, apart from Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, we know that there are very powerful people in Epstein's little black book listed. Presidents. Did you hear the rumour about Barack Obama the other day? That was soon quashed. Did you hear that? Some guy saying him and Barack got off their nut on stuff and then had sex. I mean, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. So there's Bill, who's in Epstein's list, pictured with Epstein, no less. And then the staff at Epstein's Island says, oh yeah, Bill Clinton was here. And Andrew. I think somebody who was working there said Andrew was all over this particular girl by the pool on Epstein's Island. So no one has been prosecuted. No one but they've all ducked under the rock. They've all disappeared into the shadows. No one. And yet there's Russell Brand. So Brand started his career in entertainment as a stand-up comedian. He comes from stage school, doesn't he? He's a product of stage school. I'd heard that years ago. But Brand started his career in entertainment as a stand-up comedian, performing at the Hackney Empire in 2000. It's only 23 years ago. And later at the Edinburgh Fringe. That's where he got his big break. One of his earliest controversies, can you remember in 2001? I remember this because, he kicked off big time. Russell Brand was dismissed from his job as an MTV presenter for turning up to work dressed as Osama bin Laden on the 12th of September. Can you remember that? It's all over the press. That was the day after the terror attacks on New York Twin Towers. He reckons he was off his nut on something. So that it wasn't a great idea, but then again, he was doing gear. So his aesthetic, the skinny jeans, dark clothing, big hair, because I remember seeing him early doors on Channel 4, and he's an odd-looking creature, very odd-looking creature. In fact, he's more attractive with a big hair and stuff than just looking normal. Look, I'm no Brad Pitt. Just giving you my opinion, in my view. So his skinny jeans, dark hair, big hair and dark clothing reflected pop culture at the time. Somebody reckons that his gothic look was often compared to Amy Winehouse, the troubled singer who died from alcohol seemingly, in 2011. Now, in 2008, we had another huge scandal. I mean, not only was he inappropriate by dressing as Osama bin Laden and getting the sack in 2001, 2008, can you remember Saxgate? Can you remember Andrew Sachs had been due to be interviewed by Brand on that night's pre-recorded show to promote a new TV series, but he failed to appear. Andrew Sachs didn't turn up. There's a great meme going about with Andrew Sachs saying, "Karma, Russell, karma." He failed to appear. So Brand, Jonathan Ross, I think, was just in the studio, or certainly some people think was a guest on the show. They left an offensive voicemail message for the actor in which Ross made clear that Brand had slept with Sachs' granddaughter. And during the rest of the show, the pair made attempts to rectify the situation to comic effect by leaving a series of further explicit voicemails, which also mentioned the actor's granddaughter, Georgina Bailey. 44,000 complaints were logged. 44,000. I think he was suspended and then he was sacked. Saxgate, 2008. So the boy, there's, I don't know whether it's self-sabotage that's going on. Some people, like Leeds, think that the Andrew Sachs thing was brilliant, funny. He was an old boy. He was a national treasure. You've got to be careful sometimes. There you go, Pink Roses. That prank on Andrew Sachs was absolutely disgusting, shameful. So, you know, as I say, we'll have some people saying it's a fit-up and other people saying no smoke without fire. That's why this story, I believe, is going to run and run and run this week. Russell Brand has a following of 4 million on Instagram. 4 million. 2.2 million on TikTok. 1.39 million on Rumble already. And 6.6 million on YouTube. So he's a very, very popular guy. Now, I would suggest this is not a pylon. A lot of people are saying pylon. For me, pylons are what carry electricity. This is not a pylon. This is not cancelling his social media presence. These are criminal allegations. This is not frippery. This is not opinion. These are criminal allegations. These are journalists, I believe, that want to tell the victim's story. Now, at the beginning, I said, Me Too. Hashtag Me Too. And yet the media haven't used it. They've been very clever and very sparse and very circumspect in what they've printed. But why not? Because I do believe that at the end of dispatches last night, they requested, if you have a story, get in touch. The police have said, if anything inappropriate has happened to you, please call the police. Channel 4, BBC, they're holding investigations left, right and centre. Now, I will ask you again, because there's some very critical thinkers that watch this and are in the house tonight. Is this a snowball in hell? Is this... It looks like it's a juggernaut that can't be stopped. No, they're Leeds. They're not alleged victims. They are victims by their own testimony. They've testified and it's been on TV. It's now in the public domain. They have said that they are his victims. So we can't say alleged. Although I can see where you're coming from. I can understand why you've said that. Handlebar Moustache. These women reporting Brand were little more than girls at the time. One just 16 and allegedly collected from high school. Small wonder they didn't phone the police at the time. I'm going to get to that because I think it was Emma L who's normally on these lives and comments on the videos. Why have these women come forward now? We will get to that. I believe because of the Me Too, hashtag Me Too movement, we should have learned to listen to the victims. Now, we know that a lot of victims came forward after Savile died. They were too afraid, too frightened. And I have someone that's been quite close to me who was a victim of Savile. And she told me, when I first met her, we were just talking, and she said to me and told me the story about what Jimmy Savile did. And at the time I was thinking, no, you might have been on the cook and sherry. I need to check this out. But she's adamant and maintained her story all the way through all the 30 odd years that I've known her. She said she was a victim. But she said she wasn't going to go to the police. She wasn't going to go to the authorities or any organisation because no one would believe her. I mean, look, out of my own mouth. I doubted her when I told her. But now 30 odd years later, the detail of the story remains the same. There's no deviation. It remains the same. So people were afraid because of Savile's celebrity and money and power. They were afraid because they thought they might have been the only one and the only one that would have stood up to Jimmy Savile. There's a woman in America that was raped. She has alleged it was Russell Brand. That is not a pile-on. That is criminal allegations. But it's not for us to investigate in this country. That's down to the American police. And the first, was it Nadia? She went straight to a rape crisis centre after it happened. So they will have his DNA on file. They may have her clothes. And the police will tell you, it's normally the golden hour. If someone alleges rape or sexual assault, they've got 60 minutes. Don't shower, don't clean, take your clothes off and put them in a plastic bag so they're not contaminated. Wear something else if you wish, but take the clothes off that you were in when the incident happened and put them in a plastic bag so they can't be contaminated, and then pass them on to the police as evidence. So we don't know whether that has been done in America. We should have learned to listen to the victims because of the Me Too movement. We have previous experience. That didn't happen with Savile until the Me Too movement elsewhere. Everyone started to come out and tell their story. So the journalists, realistically, have listened to the women and their stories. Now, this doesn't happen. Women en masse don't suddenly pitch up. They don't. They're scared. They don't know who to turn to. They're afraid of the perpetrator's power, money, influence. And there is one, and I will get to this in a moment, because I think it's a really pertinent and important point to be made about Russell Brand. Separate women in separate countries have said that in the moment his eyes glazed over. They said in the moment that his eyes went black. They've not corroborated each other's story. They've given witness to that. And there will be women watching this now who will say, I've been in a similar situation, Adrian. His eyes went black. His eyes glazed over. Nothing I could do. Whether it's sexual violence or violence, women the world over will know that feeling and that experience. And that right there, all of a sudden, I just thought, that's a detail only someone involved would know. And as Hayden 2012 said, Russell Brand grabs an Australian 60 Minutes reporter Liz Hayes, kisses her. I've seen that. I've seen that piece. And then he pings her bra as he walks away and just laughs. And she's got a look of incredulity on her face. But you know why he was able to do all of this? Because nobody stopped him. Nobody. Just let him get away with it. They laughed. Oh, did they laugh? Exactly the same as Savile. Exactly the same as Stuart Hall. Exactly the same as Rolf Harris. Exactly the same as all the perverts and sexual abusers at the BBC. Now, I'm going to give you a name. Catherine Ryan. Have you heard of her, the comedian? Catherine Ryan and Sarah Pascoe. You can go and do your research. You can Google it. Catherine Ryan and Sarah Pascoe. Now, they had a conversation about a known rapist on the comedy circuit. This is recorded. I can't remember which video it's on, but Catherine Ryan and Sarah Pascoe had a conversation where they said and identified a known rapist on the comedy circuit. But they said nobody will do anything. He's too big. Just like Savile. Nobody will do anything. He's too big. Catherine Ryan, and forgive me if I sound a little obtuse, because I've got to... Catherine Ryan, and I think it's for Catherine to tell her story, but Catherine alleges something went on with Russell Brand. I think it was in a hotel room, and the only reason that nothing happened was because somebody disturbed them. Somebody either knocked on the door or walked in or just disturbed them. And it saved Catherine from something I wouldn't wish on a lot of women. If she was saying no and he was saying yes, I understand it happens all the time. Sometimes women say yes and they mean no. Sometimes women say no and they mean yes. It's happened for thousands of years. But this was an enabled sex addict. So the names that we've had so far, is this just the tip of the iceberg? Self-admittedly, Russell Brand says he was a sex addict and he was at it day in, day out. Day in, day out. 4 or 5 a day. So we need to get to the point, and I'm sure the police, if they do investigate this, will get to this. Who knew what and when? We had an investigation at the BBC, and then we had an inquiry into the investigation of the BBC. And the only thing they came up with was Tony Blackburn kissed a 16-year-old once in the 60s. Nothing about Savile. They covered that up. And the dame that held the inquiry, whose name escapes me for the moment, she was damning about the BBC. So if you've got that level of fame, Hollywood fame, and money, and women throwing themselves at you, I mean, you're not going to know which way is up. But what we have in the last 24 hours is almost... Yeah, Pound Shop Tracy got that one. I'm going to mention it in a minute. Within 24 hours. Okay, I forgot to mention this right at the very beginning. During the week, I got word from an impeccable source that there was a huge story about to break at the weekend, a Me Too kind of story that was going to take everybody's breath away. This was Tuesday. And I was thinking, who can it be? Now you know. Russell Brand. I'd heard today in the news cycle, in the reportage, that Russell Brand had known for 8 days. Let me tell you what Pound Shop Tracy was saying. Breaking news. Danny Minogue says Russell Brand was a vile predator. She accused him of rarely taking no for an answer. I've cuddled Danny Minogue. So Danny Minogue, quote, Russell Brand was a vile predator. She accused him of rarely taking no for an answer. You decide. Danny Minogue hasn't just waded in for the sake of it, or for the game of it, or just to mouse people. This is her lived experience. I'd heard rumours about the rapist comedian years ago. I'd heard that there was something very dark about young Russell. I'm not going to allege anything. This is just my view. This is just what I was hearing in the media from my sources and friends. Is this a sting? I mean, people are saying it's the convicted stalker. It's Dougie, the convicted stalker. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. Infamy, infamy. They've all got it, infamy. Yes, it is a legitimate question. Why have these women come forward now? Everyone in the, well, quite a few people in the business knew, but nobody said anything. Endemol had a contract clause. No sex with employees. Why on earth would they put that clause in a contract unless they knew something? A contract clause. No sex with employees. I've never seen one of those before in my life. And what do the newspapers have to keep this story going? What are they going to say over the next week? Because it's that the Titanic sub. They'll keep this going all week. So it'll be a good week to bury bad news, as somebody said on September the 11th, 2001. Now, the Dispatches was very uncomfortable viewing, personally. Elon Musk, Trump have come out and have commented on the situation. Even Harvey Procter. Now, Harvey Procter was front page of the News of the World, spanking rent boys with either paddles or table tennis rackets. I've told you the story of me bumping into Harvey Procter and me nearly having a baby. Twice. Once in Richmond, in his shirt shop. I just wander in with my then partner, who wanted to get some waistcoat altered, I think. And we walked in. I didn't know it was his shop. Walked in, go to the counter, ding, ding. Out walks Harvey Procter. And I just suddenly clock him and go, oh my God. And like, my then partner was like, what the hell's going on? Are you all right? I said, yeah. Well, kind of. And I was like, I was getting a bit antsy and I was dancing about. And she was like, what the hell is going on with you? Because he'd taken the waistcoat and taken it in the back and he's about to come back out. I mean, he must have got this response loads of times. And I said, look, I can't stay. Got to go. So I went outside thinking, that's Harvey Procter. Spanks rent boys. It's on the front of the News of the World. He resigned after. And a few years later, fast forward, we go to Belvoir Castle. It's called I know it's called Beaver Castle. I mean, why? Look, that would have been a perfect place for Russell Brand to live. Beaver Castle. Why would you call your castle Beaver? Nice beaver. Belvoir. It's pronounced Beaver. So Beaver Castle. I'm going there with I have a psychic friend who's the world's greatest psychic. Bar none. Maybe another conversation for another time, because I'm talking about Russell Brand. And so we go to Beaver Castle just to have a wander around in the gardens and go into the castle and have a look around. And I literally go to the counter and wait for somebody to attend the counter so I can buy 2 tickets and have a guess who walks out. Harvey Procter. And I was like, Harvey, are you stalking me? Looked at me, he's like, oh, do I know you? No. I'll have 2 tickets, please. Harvey Procter's come out. I'm not sure what he said today, but there are high-profile individuals coming out and defending Russell Brand. I think that is a folly. I think it's naive. 45 million people have seen Russell Brand's denial video on YouTube. Or at least that's what I'm being told. 45 million must be on all the socials. He left the BBC in 2008, Saxgate. Now, let's just look at this. I did say to you, do you think that his Lothario behaviour was enabled? Because the Sun named him Shagger of the Year 3 years on the trot. Now, maybe he was, but would that enable him? Or did he wear a big Jim will fix it badge saying Shagger of the Year? Was it the press that enabled him to bring him down later? After the Me Too movement, we were told that safe, inclusive and professional working environments was the only way forward. So he went to rehab for heroin and alcohol addiction. Got him cleaned up. It's well documented in his books and his stand-up. He also went to rehab for sex addiction. So I'm going to ask you this question. What event made him and or his management decide that he needed to go to rehab for his sex addiction, PDQ? Who decided that? What was the event? Was it his management team? Stephen Nash says Katy Perry may be the key. Well, Katy Perry had something to say, which I'll get to next. But why would you suddenly go to rehab for sex addiction? Wasn't that Michael Douglas that brought it into the consciousness, the zeitgeist? I'm a sex addict. So what was it that made him go to rehab for sex addiction? Has that been documented in his books? What was the event that made him and or his management team decide that that's what he needed at that point, considering he'd already been to rehab for drugs and alcohol? So Katy Perry was married to Russell Brand for 14 months, October 2010 to July 2012. She said he was controlling, I quote, and really hurtful, I quote. He divorced her, or he told her he wanted a divorce via text. Classy. Moments before she went on stage for a big gig. Classy boy. Now, I don't know. I feel a little conflicted because some people are thinking, oh, you think he's guilty, don't you, Adrian? Not necessarily. I'm saying that he's been naive. Laura Brand, is that his missus? Oh, she's pregnant. Laura Brand has deleted her Instagram account. It won't get to court as the Channel 4 exposure will prevent a fair trial. They will find a way if it does go to trial. So firstly, what will happen? We'll get to how I feel about things, and we'll work out what his options are. But what will happen, I think, there'll be an investigation by Endemol or the new production company. There will be an investigation by the BBC. All the evidence that the Times and the Sunday Times and Channel 4 will have to be presented to the police in a document. Then the police will look at to see whether there's any chance of a conviction. They will then take guidance from the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, and the Crown Prosecution Service will decide if it's in the public interest. The politicians are already involved. The politicians today, is it James Cleverly? Is he Foreign Secretary? It's like a roundabout in politics at the minute. But James Cleverly's come out and said, oh, yes. Caroline, is it Dinenage? She's keeping an eye on it, saying they will take great interest in outputs and outcomes. That's my words, not hers. It means the same thing. So once the politicians are involved, it just snowballs. There's very little chance of you hanging on to anything. Jack Lewis, he's a wordsmith, very intelligent. I agree completely. And Smith caught Duggan around the back of Poundland. Theo Bovril, true, but the establishment, odd bods, get protection all the time. Paul Flint. Yeah, I agree. So I'm sort of conflicted. Because for me, there was sufficient evidence and corroborative evidence last night in the show for something to be done by the police, but not the English police, the American police. Because that's where the rape happened. Women don't make this up en masse. They don't. Rape? Yes, there have been cases where women have falsely cried rape. But this woman was so traumatized, she went straight to the Rape Crisis Centre. So there is every chance that his DNA has been held. Now, it fits his behaviour. out of control. He's admitted that there were times when he was on drugs. There were times when it may have gone to his head. Self-admitted. No, sorry. The Sun labelled him Shagger of the Year, 3 years on the trot. Was he out of control? Was his behaviour very threatening? There's been testimony today in some of the media saying that they said no to him. There was one woman said it got to the heavy petting stage where they were down to their underwear, and she said no. He agreed. She stayed for the rest of the night. She felt safe, and everything was fine. Hayden 2012, the Times quoted sources claiming a complaint was previously made to BBC management about an alarming display of aggression and disrespect from Brand. You know, if he's a young guy and he's getting that level of fame, it's bound to go to his head. If he's come out of stage school, I don't know whether he was a singer or an actor or what he was, but he's come out of stage school and he's gone and got huge amounts of fame. This is Hollywood level fame, and Hollywood is an odd place. Now, what happens if he can't remember? What happens if he was still doing various bits and pieces and maybe, I'm not going to allege anything because it's pointless, but he's a self-admitted drug addict, alcohol addict, and sex addict. And he's been to rehab for all three. What happens if he can't remember? Does it become their word against his unless there's corroborative evidence? There may be in LA, maybe the Rape Crisis Centre, but here. And if there is corroborative evidence by some of the runners or some of the youngsters that were working in telly where he may have worked, or in radio, the production team, and they've gone to their higher-ups going, that was uncalled for. But even 20 years ago, I've told you the story before. This was 1997, so it's only 26 years ago. The news editor used to walk into Liberty 963's office and shout, "Morning, Totty!" Nobody complained. Well, they did to me, and I'd have a word with him. Simon Bates fondled my sphericals. I told him, if you do that again, I'm going to rip your arms off and shove the soggy ends up your backside. Took me out for lunch. So what are Russell Brand's options? Amelia Grassi says, if his DNA is on record, then I will believe it and will be wholly disappointed. I admire his intellect so much. He will have to pay his dues and then come back to us. Amelia, I agree. But I think he's been... You can't go on stage and use it as part of your stand-up. You can't write it in books and then believe that that forgives you your sins, if there were any. You can't. People have asked about a super injunction, whether that's still live or liable. Is his wordsmithery on stage or in books and him being so free? He said in his video, he's being very open about his promiscuity. Too open at times, he says. Is that a confession or a defense? He knows what he did. We haven't had the details yet. Hollywood fame, worldwide Hollywood fame. The A-listers are his friends, or have been, certainly. He's been in their circles. He met Katy Perry on one of the films. Super prolific. I mean, so if the Sun labelled him and gave him the accolade, Shagger of the Year, how do they know? What do they know? What have the newspapers got on him? But I think he's done the right thing. Just kept his head down all weekend. Be interesting to see what... it's Caroline Dinich, of course, thank you. Will there be more women coming forward? So what are Russell Brand's options? Is he going to go to his lawyers? It's going to cost him an awful lot of money. I'm not sure how far gone his wife is, but he's got 2 kids with her now, Laura, and she looked pretty big in a picture I saw today, so she may be about to give birth. I mean, the stress that they're both going to be under. It's unfair on Laura, certainly. We don't know about Russell, because you and I don't know what is real and what isn't. We don't know whether it is a stitch-up job. We don't know whether the powers that be in the shadows have decided enough is enough. I mean, he was demonetized by YouTube, and I think it was CNN had broadcast something, and he then rebroadcast it, and YouTube jumped straight on him and said, "No, misinformation." Thank you, Katie. Sorry, Kate. Kate Webster says, if you look into the content of his films, books, and theme in the 2012 opening of the Olympics, it's very telling. Well, it was... When were the Olympics here? Was it around... It was summer, wasn't it? 2012. That was when he was getting divorced from Katy Perry. So they married in October. So it was, I think it's her birthday on the 25th of October. And they got married on the 23rd. In 2010, and then July 2012, that's when it's all kicked off. It's all gone to confetti. Terry Wookford says, with Catherine Ryan, she said she confronted the person on Backstage with Catherine Ryan. Brand was never on that show. However, David Williams, Jimmy Carr, Frankie Boyle, Nish Kumar, and Russell Kane must have been. I noted that Brand, this is from Handlebar Mustache, I noted that Brand didn't cover Schofield or Edwards in any videos. Odd for a guy who covered the big stories in the news. Scott Kirk makes a very, very good point. Why would you not go to the police instead of a media outlet? If you feel that you're the only one and no one would believe you, you're not going to go anywhere. But if reporters approach you and say, we're doing an investigation into Russell Brand, we understand that you may have a story. Do you want to talk to us about it? If that person feels they're going to be believed and feels they're going to be supported and can tell their story, they're going to do it. Because remember, power and money and influence scares people. Who sang I Am the Walrus? Did he? Oh, John Lennon said Paul was the walrus. So is Russell Brand going to go to the lawyers? Is there going to be something that he's going to... It's really tricky. Do you put a statement out tomorrow refuting all allegations and saying that you're going to work with the police and work with all the organisations and work with the BBC and work with Endemol and work with Channel 4 and work with anybody that wants to speak to him? That's not a defence though, is it? Or is he just going to be punished? Is he just going to take the punishment? Whatever that may be. Because he's not in the mainstream media anymore. They can't really get him off socials. But these are criminal charges. Well, no one's been charged, so they're criminal allegations. So would the I'm a sex addict, is that a confession? Is that an admission? Get it off his chest. Or I'm a sex addict. You won't believe me. Is that why he says? I mean, I looked at some of his humour, and his humour is quite edgy. I wouldn't say that. Can you remember a comedian called Andrew Dice Clay from America? I mean, he was breathtaking. And I don't mean in a funny kind of way, just his shtick was, it was foul. It was really, really, really out there. It wasn't humour at all. It just hurt people. And I understand that all comedy is tragedy. But he went from being a left-wing writer for The Guardian to a right-wing social commentator. Changeling, a TV star. From the start of his TV career, compared to the snake-hipped Lothario, goth, that he was in the last few years. Now, you could view the Brandon Ross Saxgate thing as just, I don't know whether you did this when you were a kid. Certainly, I'm old enough to have done this. But you just talk dirty down the... Well, hang on, I'll rephrase that. You're playing about down the phone. And it sounds like Brandon Ross for Saxgate were just two kids talking dirty down the phone in a phone box. There is a thing in radio called a shock jock. I was labelled it. Anybody with any edge to them was called a shock jock because nobody really knew what a shock jock was. But is Russell Brand just a shock jock comedian? There's Katie. She's just taken shock jockery and put it into a different arena. There's lots of stuff coming out now. I mean, we've had Scoff and we've had Hugh Edwards, we've had Savile, we've had Rolf Harris, we've had all these characters that have been up to no good. Lots of stuff coming out now this year. Strange, offensive, sexual behaviour. Is it the zeitgeist? Is it the times that they lived through that they saw that as being appropriate? Andy Turner, what happened to the Hardeep Singh Kohli case? I'm not actually mentioning that, Andy, for a very good reason. Has he been charged? I think he has. So at that point, I mean, the best way to do it is if someone is arrested before they're charged, just don't talk about it. You'll never be subject to sub judice once they've been arrested. But once they've been charged, you absolutely, categorically cannot talk about any case because they may not get a fair trial. It's called sub judice and the judge can put you away. So it's very mysterious as to what's happened and how it's happened. Catherine Ryan appears to have been right all the time, but she's not necessarily named Russell Brand. Although Sarah Pascoe and her had a conversation. They knew there was a rapist, a comedian rapist. I think Brand went 3 months in rehab in 2003, came out clean. So a couple of other points that I want to make. Have I told you about the inappropriate comments he made about the newsreader while he was at the BBC in 2007? He was told by BBC management that he had to apologise. Have you listened to the Jimmy Savile interview that Russell Brand conducted? He offered his assistant to Jimmy Savile naked. Send her around naked. Now, was that naivety? Was that Russell trying to be edgy, a shock jock? Was that Russell just either he wasn't able to think quick enough? Now, this boy is sharp, intelligent, sharp, and a good wordsmith. So I don't understand why he would. Everybody knew about Jimmy Savile having his wicked way with cadavers. Everybody knew about Jimmy Savile liking little girls. So he must have heard the rumours. He must have done. If they could reach my ears, they definitely would have reached his. But Russell Brand didn't know how to handle Savile. Savile told everyone what he was like, and everyone just laughed, thinking it was his act. Russell Brand, everybody laughed, thinking it was his act, his shtick. Brand told everyone extensively. Books, stand-up, everyone laughed. The Sun, Shagger of the Year 3 years in a row. Everyone laughed. Were they enabling him? So where do I think this is going to go now? It only has a couple of avenues. It doesn't have many places to go. Unless the newspaper or newspapers. And it's interesting that it was a Murdoch paper, but it was the Times. It was the Sunday Times that published it today. Where is it? So it was the Sunday Times that published a lot of detail today. Because look at how the Sun got their fingers burned with Hugh Edwards. They got their fingers burned. They weren't going to go down that road again. I think it still scares them. Because I understand from the figures I've seen that the Sun is running at a loss. So his days may be numbered. Like everybody else's, 1 to 30, 1 to 31. So they use the Times, which is well respected for their journalism. So unless the newspapers can bring new stuff and or the stuff that dispatchers have already got is handed over to the Met and all the police forces that it applies to, and then to the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service believe it is in the public interest, and they believe that the police will secure a prosecution and a guilty verdict possibly, and or a not guilty verdict, but either way, if it's in the public interest, they will allow the police to investigate it. Is nothing going to happen? No. No, these are criminal allegations. They either have to be investigated or everything is dropped. And he's wholly innocent and allowed to get on with the rest of his life. And hopefully this mess, this tawdry mess, does not affect his wife's pregnancy. I do wish her well. I wish her long life, good health, and whatever has happened, I hope the truth wins out. There was a couple of things that I wanted to, I don't know what I've done though. Yes I do. A couple of extra points to make to you. Now, when charities and or people involved with perpetrators, when they suddenly start dropping them like hot potatoes, you know there's something going on. Scott Kirk, Channel 4 started his career. Hayden 2012, Channel 4 has pulled all of Russell Brand's content from its streaming service while it investigates claims into his sexual misconduct. Wow. Terry Wookfit says, in order to open a criminal investigation into cases like these, the victim needs to approach the police. Well, with the support of dispatchers and or Channel 4, that may happen. But in the video that I uploaded before this live, GB Patriot, Captain Tom charity needs a proper investigation. I agree completely. I uploaded a video. Maybe you want to go and look at some of the detail in there. But one of them, the Trevi Women and Children's Charity, has said that it has cut ties with a 48-year-old comedian and had been deeply saddened and upset following the allegations. Within 24 hours, a charity has dropped him like a hot potato. And this is very interesting. One woman known as Alice told Channel 4's dispatchers and the Sunday Times that Brand assaulted her when he was in his early 30s. I think he was actually aged 30 and she was 16 and still at school. This was the girl that he sent a car to her school to pick her up. She said she took her allegations to his literary agent, Angerhard Wood, the co-founder of Tavistock Wood, owned by Curtis Brown, in 2020. But she said she received a very aggressive legal letter in response, Tavistock Wood told the BBC. Sorry, apologies. She received a very aggressive legal letter in response. Tavistock Wood told the BBC, Russell Brand categorically and vehemently denied the allegation made in 2020. But we now believe we were horribly misled by him. Tavistock Wood has terminated all professional ties to Brand. So people are scattering. People, he's toxic, possibly, and a liability, possibly, but the publishing house, his literary agent, they're all distancing themselves from him because they know he's in trouble. This is not going to end well. Is there a way out of it? I'll leave the final comment to Terry Wookfit. And if no complaints are made and everything quietens down, Plod announces NFA, which is no further action. Brand could go for defamation. However, that's going to cost. I agree with you, Terry, and I believe that if it does quieten down, nobody goes to police. It's NFA. I don't think he'll go for defamation. I think he'll just say, look, I was a bad boy. I was very promiscuous and it was my own fault. So let's everybody just move on and get on with our lives. I've got a new baby, so he'll have 3 kids at that point. But we need to listen to the people that are speaking, whether that be Russell Brand or whether that be the people that believe themselves to be victims of Russell Brand. My name's Adrian Allen. Thank you for your likes. If you could hit the thummy thing before you go, please, I'd really appreciate it. We've had over 200 people on this live tonight and only 68 likes. I really would appreciate it if you could just hit the thummy thing, hit the like thing. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, but most of all, your indulgence. There's more to come. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you will get everything that I'm going to upload over the next few days. Just remember, my name's Adrian Allen, KBO, and don't forget the Battenberg.